So my name is Zoe McKay. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Agriculture and Food Science in University College Dublin, and my area is around grassland science and forage production. So I think the focus now is looking at kind of our multi-species swards. And if we take a step back for a second, traditionally we focused on grass-only swards, so it's our perennial ryegrass sward. And that has dominated for the last 30 plus years of our research for a number of reasons. You know, it's highly palatable, it grows very well in Irish conditions, it's a high quality feed, and it's very suited to frequent grazing, which we have with our dairy animals. The one issue is to achieve, I suppose, the high levels of grass yield that we have from perennial ryegrass is it requires chemical nitrogen, and it requires that to produce the amount of herbage that we need. Now, when we're really focusing on our environmental sustainability, we need to look at alternatives as to how we manage that. So that's where multi-species swards have come from. A lot of the work that's happened here at Lyons Farm has been around looking at different types of multi-species swards, and a mixture that has dominated and has been seen now kind of at industry level is our 6-species sward mixture. And what that is made up of 3 different functional groups: our grasses, our legumes and our herbs. So grasses, we're keeping perennial ryegrass because it works very well. We're complementing that with timothy. Our legumes are our red clover and our white clover, which have the ability to take nitrogen from the atmosphere and make it available to the plants, which is a free source of nitrogen. And then the third group is our herbs, chicory and plantain. And they're in there as well with other benefits to bring to the sward to complement one another and help us tackle some of these challenges. So plantain is one of the herbs that we hear about in multi-species swards, and a lot of the work that's been done has looked at it as a mixture. Whereas plantain itself, it's a herb. It has a very deep taproot, so it can access resources that other plants can't get to, such as water and minerals and things like that. But also, it has the potential to actually change how our dairy cows use the nitrogen that they consume through the diet, and change how it's excreted, so that it's kind of excreted in a more stable form and we're not losing it. So some of the work has been done in New Zealand around utilising plantain in our swards to that effect. And when we look at plantain in an Irish context, we find it in our old meadow pastures, we find it in our hedgerows. So it's a plant that's there that has been overlooked in a sense, but now we're finding that there's potentially a big role for it within our grazing swards. To bring this to an Irish context, we want to look at plantain in Ireland in our grazing swards and see how that works. So we had a project funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine to look at what can plantain do for us basically. So within that, we have 2 different sward types, which you'll see here beside me. We have perennial ryegrass and white clover, and then we have perennial ryegrass, white clover and plantain. So we want to compare them, but isolate plantain to see exactly what it is doing in terms of nitrogen utilisation within the dairy cow. So the focus in the project is looking at these 2 different sward types. It's not comparing one versus the other, it's how we in research identify what one particular plant is actually doing. So when we look at our perennial ryegrass white clover has a key role in terms of more on the input side. So we can reduce our chemical nitrogen by having clover in the sward, because the air around us is very high in nitrogen, and it has bacteria in its roots that actually take the nitrogen out of the atmosphere and put it into a form that the clover and its companion plants, the grass, can actually use. So we're significantly able to reduce how much chemical nitrogen has been inputted into the system. Potentially, when we add plantain into that as well, we're looking more on the animal side as to when the animal consumes that forage, what happens to the nitrogen then? How is it broken down, and how is it excreted, and how is it utilised? So they can very much potentially complement one another. And the reason that we've done that is because we're focusing a lot at the minute on getting clover established on farms. So we're trying to build the building blocks that these swards and plants are being put in with a particular purpose, and that they complement and work together to achieve some of our bigger goals. So when we look at the kind of adoption of these multi-species or alternative sward mixtures at farm level, there's increasing interest in them. From a research context, we're very early days. We still have a lot of questions that need to be answered, but farmers and industry have been very open-minded to any tools and strategies that may be available to them to help us at the moment. So I think uptake has been quite strong. To date, we don't have any figures around how much multi-species or how much plantain has been inputted onto farm, but other projects that I'm involved in with colleagues here and colleagues in Teagasc, Johnstown Castle, is around putting together a survey on that to actually put figures on how much is on the ground, how farmers are finding it, and what potential there is within that.